final one is your team can be biased in testing their own game, but I generally find that it comes back to expertise again. If you know how to run these tests and ask questions the right way, generally you shouldn't be biased. And I generally find that developers they're not averse to hearing criticism on their game because you hear it all through the development process. Okay, so outsourcing, really the person that you're outsourcing to should have a lot of expertise and probably have proven methods because they've conducted these tests on several games before. But on the other side of that, I think it's really important to develop custom methods for every game that you're testing, and so they might not necessarily have methods that suit the console or the type of game that you're developing, but they should be able to adapt it. Obviously, if you're outsourcing to someone, it should be more time effective than getting your own team to do it, but you will have communication overheads, and you really should appoint someone internally to manage the process and to deal with the outsourcer. So there will be time costs involved for you anyway. They should be objective. They didn't work on the game. They shouldn't bias it in any way that your own team might. Of course, you are paying them, so they might not want to tell you that your game is crap because you might not continue to pay them. But that feedback is pretty good to hear. You might not get a chance to have the team as involved and to have as much input. In the past, when I've dealt with outsourcers doing this, we've only found out about the test sort of a couple of days beforehand because the publisher has been organising it, and they don't really have much of a chance to go, please focus on these areas, or to actually sit in on the tests, and then obviously the whole team just doesn't have a chance to be involved with the process. So you're getting secondhand feedback, as I talked about before, and you probably don't have the flexibility because you probably have to deliver a build to them several days before they're going to test it, and they might be testing it in another state, so there's just less flexibility. And same as I said before, project familiarity, they don't know your project like you do, and their solutions might not be directly applicable. Okay, so Bioshock 2, we used quite different processes for single player and then multiplayer, and within both of those we did usability and extended play testing. I'm going to go through all of those methods in detail. Just some about general practices. We use quite an iterative approach, so over a period of about 4 or 5 months we tested single player and multiplayer every 1 to 2 weeks, and we made changes between those test periods. We aimed for fast turnaround on the reporting, so the tests we conducted in 1 week, the reports would be done by the end of the week or within a week of the testing usually. And that ensures that the game hasn't changed substantially since you've done the testing and your feedback isn't just completely obsolete, which can happen at that sort of later in the project within a matter of a couple of weeks. The testing was very outcome focused, so we would start with what do we want to find out, what do we want to read in the report, what are the answers that we're looking for, and work backwards from there, as opposed to just collecting data that we're not really sure what to do with. Team involvement and input is really important. So first thing I would do was sit down with lead designer or various people in the team, and I would find out what they wanted to know, what their priorities were, what feedback they wanted, what they wanted to get out of the testing. Then I'd write out procedures and I'd get their feedback on it again and try to get as many people as possible to come in and sit in on the test. My major method that I use is focused around individual feedback, so don't believe in using group testing at all. So a lot of it would be me sitting in a room with someone playing the game, and I try to get as involved in their experience as possible. So I'd watch them playing, I'd ask them questions, I get them to talk aloud, and I take notes on that one person to get as full a picture of their experience as possible. And also we collected metrics, so we get the game to dump out a bunch of data about what the player was doing while they were playing. So the testing process we used, just in general, was that I would gather input from the team on key areas to test. So as I was saying, sit down with the lead designer and other people, find out what their priorities were. I assessed the state of the game, so I played through the game the first time, and then after that I find out what had changed. Design a specific procedure for each round of testing, and that would change depending on what the new priorities were for the feedback, what had changed to the game, and also keep iterating the process itself. So what had gone wrong, what questions weren't really working, what approaches weren't working, and feed that back into the procedure. Then we'd conduct the round of testing with the consumers and then analyze and synthesize the data and report and present the results to the team. So the facilities that we used, we had 2 dedicated user testing rooms. They're actually separated by one-way glass, which we actually didn't use at all. We just used them as 2 separate rooms. They were quite large rooms. Each room was set up to have up to 5 people playing the game at each time, and that was to support our multiplayer testing sessions. There are 10 consoles, monitors and headphones for playing the game, and there were 10 PCs and monitors for the players to do the online surveys. And we used a free program called Lime Survey. It wasn't awesome, but it was free and it suited our needs. And we also had 2 sets of video recording equipment, which was just webcams hooked up to PCs. And the laptops, we used laptops to take notes, and also we could watch the face of the people as they were playing the game. The staff that we had me, which was a user testing manager full-time. Actually went over was based in 2K Marin for several months, where I conducted this testing out of their studio there. And we had several APs and various people that helped set up and run the tests. These were all people that were doing this part-time. I've often changed week to week who was helping me out, and it was definitely everyone's second priority. So the single-player usability testing, the focus of this was to test the first couple of hours of play. We gathered in-depth feedback on each level and focused on the controls, interfaces, and gameplay, and also looked at progression, environment, pace, and difficulty, but to a lesser extent. We tested about 4 to 8 people per round, and the first 3 levels, which was approximately 2 hours of the game, and the majority of the training in the game. So get the people to play the game, I get them to talk aloud, so try and get them to tell me what they were thinking and feeling, what they're confused about, what they didn't like, as much as possible. Some people are really good at that and they'll just not stop talking the whole time. Other people, you really have to probe with questions. Then I would interview them and survey them after each level. All of the open-ended questions, I ask them verbally, because it's a lot easier for them to tell you what they're thinking, and as opposed to typing it into a survey, they'll generally give you much longer and more verbose answers verbally. Also, if you don't understand something that they're saying, you can clarify it or ask them to go into something in more detail. And the survey was just always just rating scales of enjoyment and pace and difficulty and things like that. So the extended testing was basically the same method, but the focus was to get them to play through the whole game from start to end, and to gather in-depth feedback on each level. So we could get the overall game, the narrative and the progression, in addition to the stuff we were getting in the early levels. We did less testers in each of these rounds, about 2 to 4 testers, because it would take people 2 days to play through the whole game. Generally did this like on a Tuesday and a Thursday, 2 non-consecutive days. And same method, so we get them to talk aloud, we'd observe them, ask them questions, and do the surveys and interviews after each level. So the multiplayer testing, the usability testing was again first impressions and basic gameplay and